It's time for TPG Live. Today, the on-camera portion of our roundtable is joined by Jordan Bertraum, a product leader with over 20 years in B2B enterprise SaaS. He's currently head of product discovery at UtilizeCore. His passion for market and customer discovery to drive revenue also drove him at previous leadership roles at such places as EquipID, Service Channel, and Metadata Solutions. Jordan has an MBA and MS from BU and is certified in pragmatic product management. Next up, we have Razik Andrew. With 7 years' experience with product testing and managing, Razik can currently be found as an IT technician at the Criminal Justice Agency of New York City. He's highly knowledgeable in back-end hardware and software navigation with certifications in CompTIA A+ and Network Plus. Also joining us is Jim Rome, an award-winning product leader with 15 years of experience from mobile apps to digital and AI-driven environments. Currently, he can be found at Realtor.com as their principal product manager focused on mobile app growth and engagement. He's also led product teams at NBC Universal, CNBC, Consumer Reports, WebMD, and AT&T. And then there's me, Jeremy Horn, the product guy. Today we'll be talking about product management at a crossroads, as well as ethical product development. Is product management dying? Do product managers have a broader social responsibility beyond the bottom line? All this and much more coming up next on TPG Live.
Your go-to platform for all things product management, connecting you with industry leaders, trendsetters, and a global community of insights and unique perspectives. This is the Product Way. This show is brought to you by The Product Mentor, a free program that's making a meaningful difference in the world of product management. With a footprint in over 20 countries, The Product Mentor is where mentors come from esteemed companies you know and trust, like Google, American Express, Etsy, Oracle, and many more. Head over to theproductmentor.com to learn more. As the Product Mentor looks to the future, the first half of 2024 is shaping up to be a very exciting time. A new session and website are on the horizon, and they're actively seeking mentors. If you've ever considered contributing to the community, now is the perfect time. So why wait? Visit theproductmentor.com today to learn more and sign up. It's an opportunity to make a real impact, both on your career and the broader product management community. Don't let this chance pass you by. This show is brought to you by The Product Group. The Product Group isn't just another meetup. It's a thriving community that's been the go-to hub for product enthusiasts since 2009. The Experience. You're sitting in a close-knit roundtable setting, either in person or virtually via TPG Live on YouTube. The conversation starts, and you're suddenly part of a dynamic dialogue that's as electrifying as it is enlightening. Who's this meetup for? Whether you're a product manager in a startup, a designer in a Fortune 500, a seasoned chief officer, or a student aspiring to break into the industry, the Product Group has a seat for you at the roundtable. It's a diverse community where you'll find a blend of fresh perspectives and seasoned wisdom, covering everything from the latest industry trends to timeless best practices. If you're ready to elevate your game and enrich your network, head over to meetup.com/pro/theproductgroup and join a chapter near you today. And if you're feeling adventurous, why not start a chapter in your own city? Just shoot an email to Jeremy Horn, aka The Product Guy, at jhorn, that is JHORN, at theproductguy.com. Are you looking to elevate your brand in the product management space? Partner with The Product Way, the go-to product management channel featuring a variety of shows like TPG Live. With a dedicated and diverse audience of product professionals, from newcomers to C-level execs, your brand will be front and center in conversations that matter. We offer exclusive sponsorship packages that put your message in the spotlight. Don't miss this chance to elevate your brand while contributing to the community. Email us at jhorn, that is JHORN, at theproductguy.com. Hello, product people. Are you ready to be part of the conversation that's shaping the world of product management? This is TPG Live, and I'm Jeremy Horn, also known as The Product Guy, and we are about to begin. This is your stage, no matter where you are in your product journey, from startups to Fortune 500s, interns to CEOs. We're a global community that values every voice. And that's what sets us apart. TPG Live is more than a show. It's a conversation shaped by you, whether you're on camera or off. Your insights, questions, and topics are what make this roundtable truly global and inclusive. TPG Live is not just another product management program. It's a community dialogue that spans the globe. So get ready to engage and amplify your impact. Let's meet the roundtable.
Hello. So as we get started here, I thought it'd be great to go around the roundtable, and as we go around the on-camera portion of our roundtable here today, definitely take an opportunity, those who are here, to, if there's something else about yourself that you'd like to state, feel free to mention that, and then also as I like to do. Also, we'll answer the question of the night. Today's question of the night is, what is one feature you wish every product had? So with that said, let's start with Razak.
Hello, everyone. My name is Razak. I'm currently an IT technician for the Criminal Justice Agency, and it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me, Jeremy. And to answer your question, one feature that I wish every product had is easy compatibility. And an example I could think of is a pen. A pen is easy enough for a child to just press the button on top and the tip pops out in the bottom, and they just write with it. And it's also easy enough for an adult to do the same thing. And so that will be the answer to my question, easy compatibility.
All right, Jordan.
Yes, hello everyone. I think Jeremy covered my background quite well because I wrote it, so it's actually quite perfect. The one feature that I wish every product had would be actionable business intelligence that informed where in your operations or finances you have opportunity for improvement. So letting you know like where you're overspending, for example, in your business, or where you're spending the most time in an inefficient way, where you can look at that and then say, okay, why is that happening? But I wish that was just part of every platform I've ever worked on. Magically would really make it much easier to sell.
Maybe just an magically feature. Jim?
Hi, everybody. I'm Jim Rome. I'm a principal product manager here at Realtor.com. I've been here for about a year and a half and really enjoying the space. Happy to be with everyone here today. Razak, you kind of stole my my one feature. I had labeled it as seamless interoperability, right? So similar concept that things can work better together, play nicely together. The example I always like to use, both from a product perspective and as a consumer, is in the healthcare space. So dealing with medical records, making appointments, dealing with scheduling doctor's office visits, and really communicating with them. It's quite a challenge between platforms, between practices, between apps. That's always the example that comes to mind, but I can think of that also just across platforms in the mobile space, iOS versus Android, or any other kind of, you think of the auto industry, there's lots of things that don't play nice with different types of brands. And, that's for business reasons, but it'd be great from the consumer perspective if they worked in a more seamless fashion.
So I say for myself, I kept my feature a little bit smaller, but I think a little bit smaller and aspirational. I went with user feedback integration. It's something direct, something seamless. But I don't just mean digital products. I mean every product. A baseball glove. I tap my phone to it, pops up a web page, shows me all my user data populated, and I can provide some feedback on my baseball glove. A shovel, has a button, powered by shoveling. I press the button, connects me with a real person. They talk to me about what I'm doing, lift with your knees, and about shoveling snow, and then I can give them feedback as to whether or not that actually worked, all in real time, all powered by shovel power. I don't know, maybe a camera on the handle so I could do a shovel selfie as part of that user feedback. So that would be my feature request for all products there. So now the kind of bring. So with that said, I want to transition over to our first topic of the night. Our first topic is product management at a crossroads. There's several places online that have been kind of popping up, and this is becoming I don't know if it's a hot topic yet, but it's becoming an increasingly warm topic. And what's been increasingly apparent is people are concerned about the current state of product management, the role of product manager. There was a thread that I had come across not too long ago on LinkedIn that kind of inspired this topic, and the title of the thread on LinkedIn, and I'll provide some of these links shortly, was is product management dying? Driven by Brian Chomsky over at Airbnb, getting rid of product management. We talked a little bit about that last month. Also, a Reddit conversation where people are asking, when do I actually get to do product management as a product manager, or am I just here to release stuff? And then also Marty Kagan did an article on product predictions for 2024, where he discussed the many missteps in the field, the rise of product owners, feature-oriented teams, process over principles, and really much more. So with that said, I want to kind of spend some time on this topic that we've got here, and what I'll also do is in the chat I'll drop this comment. I'll drop the links. I will attempt to drop the links into the YouTube so that folks can check out some of what I'm talking about, or I will try again. I'll try again in a moment. And then what I'd like the chat room to also be thinking about right now is, as we talk about the sustainability, the potential sustainability of product management, I'd also like to hear from the room. Do you find that is there alignment in your company on what product management is? And so I'd like to kind of start the ball rolling there, and as I paste the other article in for folks. So if you're joining us online, you can check out the chat there and see a little bit from there. So to the room, there seems to be some chaos, some potential chaos in the world of product management. Maybe it's always been there, but it's definitely a topic that people are increasingly talking about, especially. Does product management have a future? And what is product management? And so I'll just kind of throw it out to the room right now is how much of the chaos that we see, how much of the chaos stems from the variety of product management approaches and maybe a lack of consensus on the role? Who would like to take that one first?
I'm happy to jump in there. I think the answer is it depends, right? It depends on the organization. It depends on the type of role. I'll speak for my company specifically. We have a lot of PMs, and so for those of you that may not be familiar, again, I'm at Realtor.com. We're a real estate focused app similar to Zillow. If you're familiar, we help users find and navigate to their next house or help them sell their house. And we have a slew, as I said, a slew of PMs. All different aspects of the business they're managing, everything from our consumer, that's the everyday person trying to buy a house, to the customer side, which are our real estate agents or brokers, as well as we have partnerships with different types of vendors and mortgage providers, et cetera, on that side of the field. So there's lots of different aspects to tie into. Answering the question specifically, it really depends the value you're trying to bring. What problem are you trying to solve for the organization? What opportunity are you trying to dig into, and where are you trying to build upon? So again, it depends. In my role, I'm really trying to build value in new white space opportunities. What can we bring inside the mobile app ecosystem to get users coming back more often, providing them with better ways to engage with our content, and really just kind of driving that overall sensation of, yes, I can find the house that I'm looking for here. But other PMs are more kind of delivery focused, where there's a initiative that needs to be accomplished, either that may be senior leadership driven, or that may be given with a technical upgrade or something that just needs to happen. And it's more just facilitating and making sure that all the pieces are put together. So, and I've seen that in multiple organizations I've worked with in the past. It really just depends on the type of project, environment, and company. And the last thing I'll say there is, I think the higher value is really being able to create something new and create a new opportunity and build a new aspect of the product that maybe doesn't exist in the past. That's where I think the future of, trying to grow one's career and grow one's influence in the product space can be, rather than necessarily on the delivery side. But there's obviously value in getting things done as well. So summarizing again, it just all depends. And that's one of those fun answers that, lots of caveats, but hopefully that's helpful.
And
Jordan?
I can.
Razak, let's go with you.
Oh yeah, and I was just gonna say, my company, we do not have a product manager role, but I believe we all do understand the characteristics of a product manager in a company and the values a product manager brings. And to just add to what Jim said his company hires a lot of PMs, but one thing I have noticed from fellow friends and asking around is that a lot of companies are understaffed when it comes to the PM roles, and this leads to PMs having to have a lot of workload on their end. And to speak about what you mentioned earlier, Jeremy, with the chaos, this certainly could lead to chaos when you have a lot of work being done by 1 or 2 PMs in a situation where it was supposed to be done by more. And also, companies that does not have a PM, one thing I've noticed is that people in other positions are picking duties that should be done by PM. So department managers are doing things that should be done by PM, and that leads to chaos. So, yeah.
Jordan?
Well, yeah, back to the original question about alignment. I think for me right now, the answer is probably no, because there isn't anyone really out there setting the expectation at the leadership level as to what the function is actually designed to do. In the absence of that, what happens is you assume, depends on who you ask, right? If you ask an engineer what product should do, you're going to get a different answer than if you ask the salesperson or the head of client success, because what they're going to kind of lean into is, I want them to do what I need them to do for me, right? Like, why wouldn't they do that? That's just the human condition of, in the absence of you telling me what you do, I'm going to ask you to do what I need. And we have a little bit of that going on, because we don't have a clear expectation set at the highest level on what we should be doing. So no, alignment and is challenging for sure.
So the misalignment we're talking like in a company, even within a company, but Paul Hurwitz also mentions in the comments that even though they do have a dedicated product group there at his company, but they come from different parts of the org. Everyone has different has kind of a different definition around what product management is. I think, and that kind of gets to the core of this question is this tremendous variance, I think tremendous variance, or at least enough of a variance, let me restate it, enough of a variance in what product management, what a product manager is that hurting the role, the field of product management? Do we need more? Do we need more standardization just across companies, like across the industry, as to what a real product manager is? Does there needs to be more of a sense of a standard, like a global understanding of product management and what the role and what that role is? Why not? Jim, let me toss it to you.
Yeah, I would liken the role of a PM in certain organizations, or just the concept of it, and just the trend as a role, or as a career path, similar to a consultant, right? A consultant, what is a consultant? Well, it depends where they work, and it depends on what the type of work they're doing. And not to piggyback off of my earlier answer, but it really is true. You know, in a small startup organization, a PM is going to do a very different set of tasks than in an enterprise established legacy organization where they're just trying to, you know, maybe modernize their tech stack or something like that. So, you know, there are definitely core tenets that I think have to be addressed. There's core aspects of what makes a PM successful. And I think, you know, I'm always, you mentioned Jeremy earlier, Marty Kagan. I'm a huge fan of his philosophies, and everything from the empowered product management role is really where I'm trying to continue to take my career. But again, that doesn't always work everywhere. So, but overall, it comes down to understanding the users, understanding sort of what types of business value you're trying to drive, understanding where you want to see the product or the opportunity in the near future, and understanding how you can get there, right? So those are sort of just core tenets of just being a PM. But within that, it's hard to really say, how do we standardize it? Because again, I liken to, well, how do you standardize being, you know, a business consultant? Obviously, there's consulting firms that do a lot of the same things, but the projects they work on are so different. It really just varies in their day-to-day activities and the way that they're contributing. So that's kind of how I would think about it.
Yep. Pravin Gupta, also from the chat, mentioned, how do you I think kind of builds on a little bit on what you're saying there, asking how do you standardize it? There is no formal degree for product management, except I would say there are colleges where you can get a degree in product management. My own alma mater has a degree for product management that you can get. But I think that said, I kind of then pivoting a little bit more to I think some of what Jordan was also saying. So even at an organizational level, even within an organization, what a little bit what Jordan was saying, what Paul was saying in the chat, there's so much inconsistency. There's so much inconsistency even within companies. What role can organizations play in bringing more clarity and consistency to the field to help, you know, I don't know if bolster it is the proper way to talk about it, but I saw Jordan, you were nodding your head, so let me toss to you.
Well, yeah, like it's something I already said, which is the leadership level needs to evangelize, maybe that's the right word, what product is here to do for the organization, make that clear. That way there's an understanding across the org. And I've been in companies that have done that well, been in companies that have not done that so well, and I've seen the difference in the expectations of the business. But you asked an interesting question earlier about, should there be a global definition of what product management is? And there I'm going to say no. Because I do believe the role needs to be different based on what industry you're in. So like, for example, if you're the product manager on a physical product versus a digital product, I think that's very different in terms of what you're going to be doing. Even if you look at software alone and you say, I'm like enterprise B2B SaaS versus traditional B2C software, very different role. The research looks quite different. The way you go about discovery will be quite different. So I don't think it's fair to say, wow, why don't we have one list of like bullets for what a product manager should be?
I want to challenge you a little. I want to challenge you a little bit there. So forget process for a moment, but philosophically, like a standard philosophy that, I don't know, product managers are focused on, I think, as Nicholas Brown was just saying in the comments, focused on outcomes, delivering business outcomes. Should we standardize around at least a high level philosophy, if not a process?
Yes, I think.
Or is that too much?
No, you are onto something there where the objective of the role can be probably somewhat standardized to something along the lines of what you were going at, but even more, maybe more specifically, like to understand your marketplace so you can drive ultimately value for your business through either sales, retention, or something along those lines. Could be generic enough where it doesn't matter what product you're working on. Yes, that could be like the definition. But what that misses maybe a little bit is how do the actual delivery part of it. It's easy to say that, but then when you get into like, well, how do I make that happen? Again, back to like physical product versus digital, you're going to be doing different things. But again, that's tactics, not objective. So I don't disagree that we might be able to standardize the objective.
Any thoughts as to why we haven't?
Who's going to own that? Who's responsible for setting that definition? We don't have a world like, is there a singular product management organization that is out there that could do that?
And I think I'll just add, I think executive leaders are still a bit unclear, at least in many organizations I've been in, really what the role of product is and should be. So they're not necessarily willing to evangelize for it or push for it. They understand when it works well and they see it and they love it. But I don't know that they can always articulate like, oh yeah, this is why we have PMs and this is what they're doing and this is what we want them to do. The one thing I was going to add there is, we do have a product ops sort of field within Realtor.com that tries to standardize many elements of the role. They're trying to, everything from how we deliver, how we go through, certain communications, how we work on just the tangible day-to-day, which has helped. And I think something like almost like a global sort of product ops in that regard could be helpful in helping in producing sort of like a standard, best practices and things like that. But overall, I still think senior leadership in these large organizations, at least speaking from the large size, need to better understand kind of what PMs bring to the table and the value.
Where do you think that's coming from, though? It's product management is not new, and they know what a lot of the other people in their company do, or should do. Why do you, Jim? Why do you think this is such a pervasive problem?
I think it's not the easiest thing to measure. I mean, you can measure success of whatever the product is that's being rolled out, but how do you correlate that directly to the role of product management when there's, obviously lots of people involved from I'm talking digital, but, developers, designers, researchers, customer care. It's not, the product owner is an inch deep in a mile wide, right? So it's like, what are they quote unquote actually doing? That's sort of the question I often see executives kind of wondering from my experience. And of course, we're bringing it all together, right? We're producing the end result. And I love being a part of that. But, tangibly, it's not like we're doing the work, quote unquote. So I think a lot of it is opaque to the leadership perspective of like, what are they actually driving? Other than the fact that they brought it all together, they're working with all these other partners to actually deliver it. So I think that's part of it.
So one of the key themes that kept coming up in those different sources that I mentioned earlier at the top of this topic were that people are seeing a general decline in what it means to be a product manager, in what in the role, in what is actually being delivered by product managers. Do you see? Let me back up and just say, do you see this sort of decline in the average skill set of product managers, of product management that a lot of people are talking about? And if so, what do you ascribe a lot of that cause to? Jordan?
It is possible that we're seeing a dilution effect because I think the role is now being leveraged more broadly than it was 10 years ago, where the role feels like it was primarily existed in software companies only. Like that feels like where it gave birth, and that industry, gave rise to it. And it was typically also software for sale, right? The software for sale industry. But what then ultimately happened is almost every company on the planet all of a sudden started saying to themselves, well, I need software. I use software. I might even want to hire my own developers. If I have my own developers, oh, wow, I might need my own product managers. And now companies that aren't software companies have product managers on staff working on, let's say, internal tools, and where their customer are employees of the company, and they're hiring people to do that. And they just are hiring people that don't necessarily have all the qualifications that maybe they should, just because there's a need, right? I think we went through a phase where the need, the demand outstripped the supply of qualified product managers. So that I think has sort of led to people doing the job without the classical training, right? Or the experience, right? They don't have the schooling or the experience to do it, thrown to the fire, Hey, and eventually they'll learn it, right? They'll eventually learn it. But if you want to say I'm like a full stack product manager working, and all I've done is ever worked on internal tools, you're gonna have a tough time selling me that you are a full stack product manager, because you have not had to deal with 8 different customers asking you for 8 different things at the same time. You haven't had to deal with pricing. You haven't had to deal with bundling. You haven't had to deal with product marketing, right? There's a whole world out there that you have yet to deal with. And by the way, some of that stuff I just mentioned is the hardest part of the job, not the easiest part. That is really hard stuff to get good at. At all that prioritization and setting expectations with your customers about why maybe you're not going to do something anytime soon. Like, that is a skill in and amongst itself on how to have that conversation. And again, if you're just working on internal tools, you don't often have to have that conversation. It's not about ever saying really no internally. You're just saying like when. It'll eventually get done. It's in a stack. It'll eventually happen for you because you're my only customer, basically.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to add, I think the role has become obviously more popular in the past decade or so. More people are interested in it, notwithstanding the current state of the economy and the changes that some companies are making. There are in general more roles than there ever have been, right? So people are interested. It's an exciting field. But you're going to get all different types of people. And with some of the more kind of directed training courses, there's all different ways to become, a certified PM, which has a lot of textbook opportunities. But sometimes I've found it's harder to learn the role through sort of those textbook experiences rather than figuring it out kind of on the spot, being thrown into the fire, or learning from more senior mentors in an organization. So there's definitely a dilution of talent right now, which is, good and bad. But it's going to reduce the level of quality overall when you have, a larger pool of people kind of doing the role, figuring it out, not necessarily doing it to the way that is the most efficient or has, empowers some of the best practices and the best things, again, that, we're sort of talking about here. But at the same point, it's good that organizations are valuing it and bringing more PMs in on all different levels. So it's definitely changing. I think, 5-10 years from now, it'll be interesting, especially just with the future of all the technology and where AI takes the role too, which is, I'm sure, a whole different conversation. But there's a lot that has changed. But I mean, it's good to be in a changing field, put it that way.
And just to add to Jim, I believe something I've noticed that's contributing to the decline of the PMs is competition and speed. I've noticed a lot of organizations usually trying to push out several products and before a certain quarter, and beat a timeline. And what that does is skip the roles and certain levels that a standard PM will have taken. And so a lot of companies are just disregarding the roles and the levels and processes that a natural PM would have taken in those situations in the effort of trying to beat a timeline.
Yeah, Chris Butler, and then seconded and thirded and et cetera by other folks in the chat. Chris points out a really important takeaway in that it seems that it might be becoming harder to get an associate product management role than it is to get into universities, which is probably true. And what that points to is, again, as Chris points out, what that points to, we're not developing junior product managers. We're not investing in product managers anymore, most anywhere. I know several years back, I tried to assemble a list of every company I could find that had an associate product manager program. Again, this is several years ago, so I definitely wouldn't expect. I'd expect that number to be lower than whatever is today. But I'll tell you, even back then, I had trouble finding 10. And I have a very strong global network, and I have a lot of access to a lot of companies, and I couldn't find. I think I didn't even hit 10, and that's why you never heard about this program. I was going to help promote associate product managers and help people find companies that were willing to do the training for those kind of junior roles, but I couldn't find enough, and I think that's still a real problem today, and I don't see a lot of companies investing in that. Jordan, have you seen where traditional product management has just been degrading fully into just release management in some companies? Where have you seen it happening? What's driving it?
I don't have a great answer for this, but I can say you think a little bit about why, like, the amount of things you release can be is being measured is because it's easy. It's almost the easiest way to assess the product and engineering functions as like a cohesive unit with UX. Let's include UX in that as well, right? Of course. It's an easy measurement. It's a lazy measurement. It's somewhat trackable. Outside of that, if you want to say, let's just look at product management as just that function, forget engineering, that side of it. And you say to someone, how do you assess the efficacy of your product management function in like my world, which is like enterprise B2B SaaS? And there is no easy answer to me. Like it is way more art than science. The metrics around that get very challenging. So if truly, in a perfect world, if you ask me like, okay, how as someone who's managed and mentored product managers, many, in a bunch of different roles, like, okay, then how do you measure your team? I oversimplify it to basically you need to have a plan for your product in the form of usually a roadmap, and it needs to be easily defensible. You need to have all the information that goes into how you can defend it to anybody in the company, ranging from, a sole contributing client success manager all the way up to the CEO of the business. If you can defend it to that range of people, and to me, you're doing a pretty damn good job. But the hard part of that is having all that like information / data to defend why your plan is your plan.
Jim, what strategies can product leaders, organizations, the product managers themselves employ to elevate the role of product managers in organizations where they are being undervalued or misunderstood?
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest things that I see is it's fairly simple when you think about it, but it can have a strong impact. Is the role of storytelling and really being able to tell a story, tell your vision, outline and illustrate where you see the future of the product, the feature, the opportunity, and how you can see it impacting the business, right? And a lot of it is about selling that vision internally and selling that story and selling that narrative to really get people on board and evangelize that theory and that promotion internally with your executive leaders, with your stakeholders, with your cross-functional partners. I find that actually tends to be one of the hardest things to do well, is getting people excited and on board and really understand why you're trying to, ask for more engineers on this project, or why this is going to take longer than expected, or why you need to add some more back-end capabilities to support this, or whatever it is. It's all about getting to this longer term vision. And, the most successful PMs I've seen do this really well. They're passionate about what they're doing. They're convincing, and they make it simple for others to understand and really get on board with you. So, my feedback or advice would be, working on that aspect of storytelling and that vision sort of prototyping, or visionary directive is really going to be very helpful.
Gotcha. Razak?
Yes, I agree with Jim. I believe as a PM, you should be able to see the perspective of a product from not just only the product owner's view, but also the consumer's view and stakeholder view, and also the staff members of the organization view. So it's like wearing different glasses and seeing different perspective and bringing it all together into one in a very easy accessible product for the end users. So it all comes down to communication and clarification from the top to the bottom of and the bottom meaning the overall users. So yes, communication and clarification.
So Jordan, this next question is for you, in that you and I've debated from time to time in the past about product owner versus product manager. Should they exist? Do they exist? And so coming from Marty's article, especially, and I agree, and I do agree with what he said there. In that, one of the viewpoint is the rise of product owners from agile processes has undermined the true value of what product management is. Do you agree? Why or why not?
Yeah, no, I am familiar with Marty's take on breaking this role into kind of two parts and the problems that can arise from that. I don't know that I agree for a company that's at scale. And the reason I say that is if you have enough work within the entire like product domain to let people specialize, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, because I think one of the hardest parts of doing what I call full stack product management, from discovery all the way down to, basically overseeing that the engineers are focused on what they should be focused on and delivering on that, is a very broad job. You're asking a lot of one person to do all of that at an A level. Okay, it is the classic joke I like to use is like, it's like saying, would you ever hire one person to be in to handle HR and sales? No company ever does that. So why do we expect one person to master the entire stack of product management that is so different from working closely with engineering to doing market research? How are those two things related? How are those two things on the same person that you'd expect them to do both of those at an A level, other than you pray, you hope, and then you just hope they learn it and do both at an A level? It's a lot to ask of people. So through the lens of let people do what they're good at, and the fact that those are different, I don't mind letting the people that are really good at product discovery do product discovery, and the people that are really good at, let's say, solutioning and then expressing that solutioning to an engineering function and then working closely with and partnering with that engineering function to help them deliver on it, I don't have a problem with that. I think that level of specialization can work as long as the transition and translation from the product team person to the product owner is very, very tight, right? That's the key. That's where a lot of companies are going to fail when you have two different roles, is the gaps and the loss of fidelity and all the things the product person knows that the product owner doesn't.
I think what you're saying kind of, I'll say this and I'll toss over to you, Jim. I think Jordan, in talking about they got to be really close. Isn't that the problem? No company is perfect, and most are far from it. And I think, to me, that kind of points to where I see a lot of that challenge, that breakdown, because you get a lot. I've seen a lot of where you kind of throw it over the fence when that role gets split up. You kind of, well, I'm gonna have the product owner do this part of it, and I'll have the product manager do that part because this is the part I don't like, and so I'm gonna have them do this, the more grunt work. Create stories, talk to the engineers, all that kind of stuff, versus, taking responsibility for, the actual delivery and the end-to-end of your product or your sliver of that product. But Jim, you wanted to say?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll just throw the counter side to that, where, I'm personally a big fan of, as Marty says too, the dual track agile. So, having discovery and also delivery sort of packaged together. The key to really
that I'm a big fan of. Yes. Great.
I think the key to doing that is also keeping your scope somewhat small, if you have the luxury of doing that. And obviously, depending on your role in the organization, you may not have that luxury. But if you have a small niche area where you can really kind of focus your efforts on doing those things well, you're learning what you want to explore and what types of opportunities can work well. Well, at the same time, you have a different path at delivering the ones previously explored. The challenge again, yeah, I mean, if you're working, the only way that I could see, Jordan, what you suggested working really well is if you have multiple layers of PMs, I think, on the same team. So if you're a senior PM working with either a PM or an APM, maybe on the same agile squad team, whatever we call it, and you're, day to day in all the same sort of discussions, then I think that could work well. But if you're truly handing it off, I would be very concerned, because then you're really kind of just turning into a feature factory at that point, or at least part of the delivery team is obviously on the feature side, and things get lost in translation, and what happens when things change, and but it can work. I just think it's better when the team, also from the team dynamic, I've found that when engineers, if they want to be involved in the product discovery process, when they choose to do so, they find it a lot more rewarding to understand why they're trying to build something and what opportunity they're trying to solve for, rather than here's some requirements, go build it. And they're like, okay, great. But it's not, there's not as much context behind what they're doing. So they may not be as like super excited behind it. So, there's a human psychology element to that as well.
And just to add to what Jordan said, I believe that a lot of product owners go into the agile system with a very engineering mindset, in the set where they just think very technical, and compared to a product manager where you have to think about the users, how they're going to receive the product, and not just the technical side, but it's almost having to see the wider view. So I definitely don't think the product owner undermines the value of a product manager in this situation.
Yeah, so I wanted to end on this last question. This end the topic on this last question is that, and I think Jordan, it was you who touched on this a little bit earlier, in that another perspective is that too many people carry the product manager title without the proper skills or experience, and so to what extent do we see this diluting and damaging the craft of product manager? And also, even more specifically, what should we as product managers, as leaders in our companies, be doing about this to address this problem?
I'll jump in on that one. I think anyone out there who has aspirations to be a manager within the product management function, if you don't enjoy and are not willing to take on mentorship and training of those that are on your team, and those that are coming up that are young, like we were talking about, the associate product manager level, and take those people on and mentor them, rethink whether you want to be a manager, because I feel very strongly that any manager of any discipline, mentorship has to be part of that. Like that's just a definite, like management to me does not mean like controlling people and telling them what to do and assigning them tasks and then, micromanaging them to death. It's developing them, making them better at what they do, so your overall team just gets better at what they deliver. So if you're not interested in mentorship, pursue a professional path. Do not become a manager. I'm sorry. Like, I feel very strongly, about that. That's why I was in the product mentor, for 9 times, because I wanted to mentor outside of my professional life. I found it rewarding. I like teaching. I like seeing people get better at what they do. Parting a little wisdom, right, as they say, is important to me. So anyone out there that has aspirations, take that seriously, because I think that's going to, high tides raise all boats kind of concept. It's going to make the whole product management function better if anyone that's a manager takes that on.
Awesome. Anyone else have anything else they want to add on this topic before I transition to our next segment?
Yeah, I'll just kind of close that in just saying, I agree. I think it's all about promotion of what we can do well, and, best practices and case studies, and sharing insights for those that are up and coming in the field or just looking to learn more. I personally follow lots of people, as I'm sure we all do, just from blogs to LinkedIn to books and articles. And it's great and very inspiring to see how well the industry is doing. And I think we just have to keep doing more of it. And, self-promotion is obviously key here, really getting excited about the value and the change that we can drive within an organization, and making it clear to others, like, why we love being PMs and what's the value behind it and why we find it exciting. So, I think just kind of sharing all that knowledge with people that are up and coming and people that are growing their careers in product is super helpful.
And I think the
Awesome.
PM role, and
Go ahead.
add to that, I think the PM role is something unique in every company, and every PM throughout their career lane are going to encounter issues that are uniquely presented to them compared to every other PM. So education in this field is definitely something continuous, something that will never stop. And thanks to platforms like yours, Jeremy, and there are a lot more ways you can educate yourself on this topic. So I think this would be something that would be a continuous education if you plan on going in this field.
Great. That's good. Those are all great points. So let's get to some trivia. And remember, I'm going to say for the room and for the chat as well, feel free to discuss on camera, discuss in the chat room, but don't say the answer. We're going to get to an answer section later in the show. But right now, feel free to talk amongst yourselves, but don't say the answer. So with that said,
TPG Live trivia segment. What framework or philosophy might cause you to reach for a milkshake as you focus on the real reasons behind customer choices?
All right, so that's our trivia question of the evening. So I'll be interested to see if everyone can kind of come up with the answer. But I see Chris is putting fun jokes in the chat. Good job. So now this kind of brings us to our next session, our second topic of this session, ethics in product management. I think with both the technical and social challenges around existing and even more some new emerging technologies, ethics and social responsibility are increasingly becoming part of the conversation. I'm not going to say the two-letter acronym that tends to come to mind for any conversation about anything nowadays, but ethics and product management I think are an increasingly active area. And so for the chat room, I want to pose to you, what does responsible and ethical product management mean to you? And to our on-camera roundtable, the first question I want to just toss out there is, should product managers view themselves as having broader social responsibilities beyond commercial success? Jim?
Yeah, I mean, high level, yes. Depending on the product we work on, we can have big impact. From a timely perspective, I bring up some of the hearings yesterday on Capitol Hill with all the big tech companies and the major impact that decisions that ultimately product managers were likely partially, if not fully responsible for, resulted in.
So for people who might not know what you're talking about, can you give everyone like a quick summary?
Sure. Yeah. So yesterday, a lot of leaders of some of the top tech companies, Meta, TikTok, Snap, I forget exactly who else was there, were grilled in front of the U.S. Congress, or members of the congressional committee, about the role of some of the negative impacts that their social media platforms have played, everything from child exploitation to lots of other negative things that were happening just from bullying and online other scary things. Not to get too deep into that, but essentially, they
Mark fixed everything. He said sorry. Mark said sorry.
He did.
I say sarcastically for anyone who doesn't know my humor.
Yeah.
But anyway, Jim, go ahead.
No, so just thinking about, again, I mean, PMs are responsible for creating the product features that appeared on the platforms, the ways that the algorithms, essentially showcased information, the types of information that were showcased, how. So you have to think from that perspective. What you're doing as a product manager can matter. I'll put it in perspective of my product, right? So my role, again, Realtor.com, we're trying to help people find the best housing. We have to make sure that we are incorporating all aspects of housing for all people. There are laws to protect people. There's fair housing. There's things like that. But also, we want to make sure that we're showcasing information in a way that is not biased. For example, we have explored concepts of showcasing safety aspects within our platform. So is a neighborhood, is a region, is an area safe? Well, what is safety? What does safety consist of? How do you promote safety, or how do you showcase the results of safety? Is it crime? What does crime mean, right? So there's definitely inherent biases, and there's things that we need to be aware of in when we are presenting that information to make sure that we are not negatively portraying whether it's certain types of people, certain areas, certain backgrounds, it has to be done in a way that is fair and unbiased and ethical. So these are things that we're thinking about in ways that we can share information and get users to a place where they can guide their research, but also not putting them in a position that they're seeing things that are not as helpful, or it shouldn't be promoted in a certain way because it's not fair, right? So there's lots of things we have to consider there.
So you bring up some intro. So I like how you're applying this, what you're doing over at Realtor.com. How have you integrated this ethical way of this ethical thinking? What are the tools? What are the processes you have in place that have been able to drive and bring out build in these ethical considerations into your processes?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing that we try to do from our perspective is talk to users. We talk to all different types of users, young, old, all different types of incomes, all different types of demographic backgrounds. They all have different family sizes, different different family makeups as far as who's living together and who's looking to live together. So that's number one. We want to make sure we take into account all types of users, and that our products can equally promote the features for them. So that's step one. Step two, again, working, as I mentioned, sort of within the confines of restrictions or laws that may be in place, like I said, with fair housing, where you're not inhibiting anybody's right to secure or find a home based on any kind of background or ethnicity or things like that. And lastly, we want to make sure that the products work well for users. So in all the user research we do, any kind of user testing and times we're putting prototypes in front of users, again, we want to make sure that we're not biased based on our own personal experiences only. Like we all, many of us here probably either own or have purchased a house or are looking to purchase a house. So, right, we need to make sure that that's not the only experience we take into account. Often as PMs in any organization, you take your firsthand experience as the most useful and most clearest understanding of what that interaction could be. And that might not be true. That's just your individual experience, right? So it's trying to get a slew of viewpoints from all different people to make sure that what we're doing is as fair and as open as we can be.
But I guess is just tapping on Realtor.com just one more time. I'm knocking on the door, I'll say. In that, is it driven by like a values document? Is it, hey, when you're building a new feature for the product, or you're trying to develop a new outcome for the product, make sure you check these things. Mm-hmm. Like how does it come about? I'm just trying to get into trying to see if there's a tool in there that
sure,
you might be able to share with the people listening.
Yes, absolutely. We do have a series of company principles of which we abide by, really just how we operate as an organization, how we try to, again, be a fair and open housing market for all. I don't have them all on the top of my head, but pretty much every product decision sort of has to level up and make sure that our principles and the way that we conduct business is done consistently across the board for any type of product feature. So yes, that's more executive level, sort of mandated or created more in the executive level and communicated across the board, which I think is nice because it gives us that sense of standardization. So distinctly answering your question, yes, we have a set of frameworks and kind of goals that drive our vision forward.
Gotcha. Razak?
Yes, to get back to your question, Jeremy, I believe every product released to the mass should be for the good of the mass. So I believe the number one thing to consider when releasing any product should be, how is this going to affect the consumers for their good? And whatever money is made out of it, or whatever benefits is made out of it, should be secondary, and that's one of the beauty of working as a PM, is that you get to be part of the process of creating this product or project that helps people out in whatever way. It could be in the healthcare or physical or whatever way it is. But I believe that's one of the most beautiful part about being a PM. So yes, it should always definitely be towards the people and how it's affecting the people.
Great. Jordan, like in what ways do you see that product that product managers, what can they do to foster culture of ethical awareness, responsibility within their teams, within their organizations?
Man, you have to ask me such a hard question.
Yeah, nice small lift question.
Thanks, man. Thanks. I appreciate that. So I'm going to give a really I'm going to start with a generic answer. First off, I think every product manager follow your internal moral compass. Okay. If something, in your gut is telling you that this is not right, it's a good likelihood it's not. And follow that. And don't be afraid to, and don't let yourself be bullied by anyone into doing something you feel like is not right. We're like, do not let inertia take its course. Okay. So that's number one, is don't be afraid to follow your own gut. I'm just going to shift.
Yeah. I just want to add one quick thing to that. Yeah. I just want to add one quick thing to that, in that, Jordan's very much right in that don't let the inertia just just don't go with it just because of the inertia behind it. Because I'll also point out that those of us in senior management, sometimes something will come through and we'll push it forward, and there was just no one with a brain on, and we needed someone to say, "Hold on, you missed this whole. There's a whole big problem here. Look at this," and I can tell you, in the executive teams I've been a part of, we'd actually appreciate that, and pointing out where we made a mistake, or we overlooked something that maybe was obvious to someone else or another group of people. So definitely something the gut feels wrong. Say it. If you've got a good leadership team, they're going to really appreciate it there. Back to you, Jordan.
Yeah. So for me, I find my ethical compass is tested into two arenas. One, which might be a little bit surprising, has actually not so much to do with the product itself. It has to do with how we market it. Marketing, there's a thin line and a big gray area between what I call aspirational marketing and just full on lying, right? And I like to play on the inside of full on lying, yet there's so much pressure in a very competitive, let's say if you're in a very competitive market, to be, to really push the truth about what your product is really capable of. And that bugs me. Like I like to play like by the rules. And if you've got a good product and you do right by the product, it then sells itself. Okay. Like a little cliche, but that's what I'm a believer in. And don't go so far as to lie about what your product is capable of. That's one. The other is, of course, the product itself. And yes, I've been in situations where I felt like my marketplace, meaning like more than one, a handful of customers were asking the product to do something that felt like it just wasn't the right thing to do from a human standpoint, that what you'd be doing is cheating someone else. Let me just put it that way, that I'm helping you. My product would be allowing you to do something to someone else that they might not even realize it. And I'm not going to automate that for you. Like I understand that there are humans using my product, and if they're going to use it in a way that isn't exactly ethical, there's a little bit I can do about that, but I'm certainly not going to automate that, for example. And I've been in those situations where I've been asked to automate cheating, I can't say it another way and I don't want to be specific. And that does keep me up at nights too. And I generally will not do that. And I will do my best to talk customers out of feeling like they should need it to the best of my ability. And I haven't always been successful, I will admit, because if the marketplace pushes you enough, and sometimes it's even gotten up to above me, and then it's come back down on me where I was told to just do it. And that's happened to me. And in that case, I've been a little stuck. And I will admit, I didn't have a good answer for what to do in that scenario. Can't tell you what to do in that scenario. It's not not an easy position to be in. But I have. And that's the kind of ethical issues I run into.
Yeah, I also wonder, just piggybacking off of that, the aspect of products that are built for addiction, right? Built to get users to come back more. And I haven't personally really worked in that space. I mean, of course, I've worked in products that were looking for retention and getting users to come back, but not necessarily addiction. So whether it's gaming, whether it's other kind of immersive experiences, That's not always a bad thing, but maybe it can become a bad thing. And to the point of, the word addiction is usually a negative. So, how do we, I guess I'm throwing it to my fellow colleagues here. Like, how do we think about addiction in the product space, even though that can build success for the business, assuming, you can monetize the repeat usage or whatever it is. But is that a bad thing? And, how do we think about that? I mean, I guess answering my own question, I think it's, certain products are worse than others. I mean, if you're just talking a simple, game that doesn't really have a whole lot behind it, I think that's fine. But if you're talking, again, going back to the social media platforms, there can be real impact there, and there can be mental health impact, and there can be things that change your just general interactions with how you engage with peers and friends. But it's hard to think about at the same time as a product person. You're sitting in a whiteboarding session, you're doing discovery, you're talking to users, you're getting excited about something that can have that sticky factor, that retention, that engagement that users really come back to every day and many times a day. So that sounds like success. So it's tough to really see that longer term vision, be like, oh shoot, this is way more successful than we wanted it to be, which can, turns into addiction.
And to add to Jim, a lot of companies, they spend a lot of millions of dollars to just study the human behavior, and they have so much data on us and on our patterns, our day-to-day patterns, and they use this with as traps for dopamine traps to lead to addiction, to lure us in. And they also know the negative side towards this traps, and it's up to them, sadly, to decide if they're gonna use it in a good way or a bad way. And back to what Jordan said, it's all about having that integrity deep inside, and it comes all the way from the product owner to the stakeholders as well, to having to determine what to do with this information and study they know about us, the consumers, and the people.
Yeah, it's interesting to me. I think it's a great question. When I guess addicted to love, addicted to happiness, I guess those are okay. But I think when you're coming at in product management, we used to you would design a product, you'd have, or work with you, or UX would work on designing the experience of the product, and you used to say addicted. Or it would kind of do like where they'd want to come back, but it was like addicted to a content management system in a way that it was pleasant to use. That's kind of how you used to use it. And I think it's really been twisted and I think even for games, and a game you're addicted to, there's something wrong there, especially when you're looking at a lot of the mobile phone stuff where you're addicted and you play for 30 seconds, watch a 2-minute ad, play for 30 seconds, watch a 2-minute ad. And for some reason you don't put it down and say, that's ridiculous. So I think I'd say, I don't know when, I don't know the timing, but I'd say at some point there's definitely going to be some legislation and laws around, I guess, what you would call dark patterns, and a lot of these behavioral things, because I think with a lot of things with companies, it'd be when a company is working towards delivering for the stakeholders, delivering business outcomes. Yeah, I think ethics become challenging, or in many places. And I think that's where you do need some of that regulation. Maybe Europe will do it and we'll all have to follow. Or there'll just be a European version of all these apps. We'll have to see. We'll have to see which way this all goes. But I think addiction in general, in the way it is today, I can't think of a good example. I can't think of where I would say, that's a good addiction to have. Like I said, other than the two I started off with at the beginning.
Maybe fitness. I could see, the fitness world. That's probably the one place.
I don't know. Have you seen? I've seen some TikToks, man. They're a little too addicted.
I guess it's true. Fair point.
Like I'm all for, you want to be healthy, go for a run, follow a good diet, all that. Yeah. I hear all those things are probably good. But I think addiction kind of brings you into that. Addiction to me, I can't stop. And it's more than just doing it because I think it's the right thing to do, where I'm consciously doing something. It is addiction to me. It's I can't stop myself. And I think that's when it goes too far. And I think talking about addiction with respect to a lot of these products out there, there's a lot of these games, etc. I think that really brings up a very good point. Um, uh, can you think of a product that that impressed you with its inclusivity, with its data management, with its ethics, with the way it handled ethics, or the opposite? Can you point to a product that has tremendously disappointed you with how it's done it, and what are the features that you thought that were the positive or the negative ones? Razak?
Sure. A product that comes into my mind is the the iPhone, the OS in the iPhone. I like the fact that you can constantly update the OS. I think that that's a very crucial thing in devices, and the fact that if there is something that needs to be picked up or adapted to, you can just with a press of a button get hooked up with it without buying a new device or spending more money. I like that about the OS. And I am trying to think of a device that I don't like. I think I will have to get back to you on that one. I will let somebody else on the panel speak on that one.
Jordan?
I don't have a great answer, so I'm gonna cheat. I'm gonna piggyback on what Razak was saying and go one step further. Specifically, I think if you look at the investment the iPhone has made in accessibility features, is actually rather impressive. If you think about the size of that market, right, and the percentage of people that probably really need that, to the level of investment, it is probably incongruous, okay, in their favor. That there were millions of dollars of research that probably went into that, and they did not need to do that to sell a crap load of iPhones, right? And they did it anyway. So I will give Apple credit for that one example, for like seemingly doing the right thing to support those people that need accessibility features.
I think building. I was going to say, building accessibility features into a product is definitely on the positive side of ethical behavior. How can product managers actively integrate accessibility into their design process to best address all these diverse needs? Jim?
Yeah, happy to tackle that. I just real quick want to answer the last question too. I think also
Sure.
throwing out the voice assistants. So even though they're not as popular as they used to be, but Alexa, Google Home, etc. I think it's pretty amazing how they're developed for so many different varieties of voices, age, accents. I've seen so many people use them successfully when I can't necessarily even fully understand what they may be saying, but the voice assistant did. So that was pretty impressive. Answering your current question. So I think thinking of accessibility. So in my roles, we've often incorporated accessibility towards the end of a development design process. Hey, here's all our designs. Here's what we're working on. Oh, shoot, we need to think about accessibility. So I think the key is let's incorporate that from the start. Let's think about accessibility as part of the holistic design development experience, just as important as to building, the main functionality. Again, more specifically, when it comes to building apps, we want to make sure that if we're talking for visual impairment, that there's a voiceover aspect accounts for all the different tappable areas, can account for all the different aspects of interactivity within the app itself, and is done in a way that is not an afterthought. So that's sort of how we would kind of think about it. Did we lose Jeremy?
I think we did.
Or did he just turn his camera off? He might have just turned his camera.
What do you guys think as far as designing for or incorporating accessibility early on, or anything from your side?
A thought came up in my head of something I don't like about a product that I don't like, but I can't think of a product specifically. But a system, I would say, behind product creation is several products that are presented in the modern countries, and we can access them easily. But the creation side of it are created in third world countries that, and it might not be in the best or the most healthy scenario or environment while creating this products, and not having to pay, given the people who are doing the physical labor, the earnings they deserve. So but for us people who live in modern countries and stuff, we just see the finalized side of the product, and we don't see the back end of it. So if there was a way of making a more clear system where we see from the beginning side, where the users can see from the beginning side of how the products was created, and till the end product of the end side of the product, I think that would be amazing. So yeah.
Yeah. So to answer that question, Jeremy asked about how can we incorporate accessibility into our products. And I will admit, I only recently was this was brought to my attention by a UX designer that is pretty wise. But you may have already known this. There are actually tools out there that you can run against your product, and it will give you an accessibility score with details about the problems that exist in your product, okay, that technically do not meet accessibility standards. And my understanding, again, I'm not a lawyer, so take this with a grain of salt. This might not be 100% true. If you don't meet certain accessibility standards, your users can actually make you liable for that. They do have a right to sue you if your product does not meet certain accessibility standards, is what I've been told. I don't know if that's true, but that's what I've heard. But there are tools out there that can keep you very safe pretty easily. Things as easy as like contrast, colorblind tests, things of that nature. Pretty easy to leverage these. There a lot of them are free tools, some are paid tools, but they basically will just scan your entire web-based product, okay, and tell you everywhere in your product that you might have a potential accessibility problem. That's a good start. That's a good way, for like level 1 type accessibility stuff. Start there. If you're curious and you want to, have some of the basics, leverage those tools. I can't point to any of them off the top of my head, unfortunately. Maybe some of my counterparts might know. But just keep that in mind for those that didn't know that, because I didn't know it until 6 months ago.
Yeah, we've also worked in the past with agencies that'll help do an audit of all of our digital platforms, and essentially kind of showcasing where we're doing well, where we're not, where we could improve, where we're not doing as well from the accessibility perspective. So it's nice to have partners there. Hey, Jeremy.
Welcome back, Jeremy.
It was Chrome and OBS fighting with each other. So, yay for me needing an upgraded laptop or desktop. So I still was able to hear everything that you guys were saying. Does anyone else have any? Because my backup system, at least I could see you. Is anyone have anything that they wanted to add to this topic before we get to the trivia answers?
I think I'll just say. I think I'll just say, obviously, it's an important aspect to consider. Everything with ethics and accessibility, we want to make sure that as product professionals, we're building for everybody and building for the right experiences that everyone can enjoy. So, I fully support continuing to grow and invest our ability in learning more about this area.
Outstanding. All right. So before we go to the actual answer, does everyone in this room think they know what the answer was?
I don't.
Yeah.
No. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. All right. I'm going to ask the chat room. Does anyone in the chat room know the answer to my question? What framework or philosophy might cause you to reach for a milkshake as you focus on the real reasons behind customer choices? Oh, geez. Okay. I guess we'll just jump to let's see the answer.
What philosophy might cause you to reach for a milkshake as you focus on the real reasons behind customer choices? Used at big brand companies like Microsoft and Bosch. Appeared in Harvard Business Review in 2002. Created by Tony Ulwick and popularized by Clayton Christensen. Jobs to be done. You see, McDonald's was struggling to increase sales of milkshakes. Clayton was brought in as a consultant. He decided to test out his new jobs theory and decided to ask customers, what job are you trying to get done that causes you to come to McDonald's to hire a milkshake at 6:30 in the morning? Most everyone had the same answer. On their long drive to work, they needed something that would help them stay engaged and not fall asleep at the wheel. Jobs to be done is a theory stating that customers don't buy products. They buy the completed jobs that products help bring about. For example, someone doesn't buy a screwdriver because of its features. They buy what the screwdriver ultimately does for them. Helps assemble furniture so their home looks better. Or buy a milkshake to not crash the car.
No one knew it was jobs to be done? Oh my gosh. All right. So yeah, jobs to be done was something that was introduced to me many, many years ago. And I luckily, Paul wants to know what the prize is. So first I want to say Nicholas Brown in our chat did get the answer before it came on the screen. So cool. Congrats to Nicholas. And Paul wants to know what the prize is. And the prize is knowing that you did a good job and you knew the answer. That's the prize. And maybe someday, if you ever, Nicholas, if you ever in my neighborhood, happy to go take you for a coffee. How about that? And so see, now everyone should be very incentivized. So jobs to be done. It was something that was I was introduced. I was given access to a workshop for free, and I got to learn it. And the milkshake example tends to be one of the most common examples for jobs to be done. And so it's pretty. I'd say it's something that is controversial when I think people think about it as a framework. But I think when you think about it more as a core philosophy, as to how to think about building the product, how to get at what people are actually getting out of maybe your products, or what the decision points are that lead up to them making a purchase for your product, I think it becomes a very just another really great tool to have in your tool belt as you go about these things. So that said, let's kind of go around the room for just some final comments, observations, etc. Let's start with Jordan.
Start with me. Final observations. Oh man. Wow. No, I don't have anything to add. I thought your questions were, I'll say this much. They really made me think as I was going through them prior to the session. I feel like it was the first time in a long time someone asked me a question about product management that I didn't have an obvious answer and a quick answer. So for that, I commend you, Jeremy, for coming up with something that I had not already preordained as I already had conceived. So thank you for that. You challenged me, and that's not easy to do. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Awesome. Razak?
Yes, I want to say that listening to everyone speak, it made me realize the potential and growth opportunity of the PM field, especially with the birth of AI. I'm very interested to see how things play out in the future on this role and the new technologies being put out to the mass. And I also want to say thank you to Jeremy, Jim, Jordan, and everyone who was a part of this. This was amazing, and it was fantastic getting to hear everyone's opinion on this topic. So yeah, thank you.
And to you, Jim.
Yeah, I'll also echo the thanks to everyone here, and I appreciate Jeremy keeping me involved here. I would just say, it's an exciting time to be in the PM space. I mean, lots happening again, with the changes to the role, with more people coming into the space, with the landscape ever evolving, especially as companies sort of shift the resources But it's a lot of fun. We're building cool stuff. We're making material impact to users. We're driving revenue, and we can really be the sole. We can make a big difference in the organization depending on where we're at. So I think it's a lot of fun. And, also thinking about the ethical perspectives of what do we want to do right? And what do we want to make sure that the company is doing right by our users and by our customers. So lots to think about. Again, really cool conversation, and glad I was able to be a part of it.
Yeah, no, it's great. And by the way, if anyone wants to sponsor a new desktop for me, feel free, reach out. Every time I get a new problem, I have redundancy on internet. That was fine. Now it turns out I need redundant. I don't know. OBS killed itself. My camera killed itself. It's like they held hands and jumped off a cliff together. So at least I'm getting good at recovering. So anyway, I want to thank our off and on camera roundtable, Jordan Bertraum at UtilizeCore, Razak Andrew, working over at New York City's Criminal Justice Agency, and Jim Rome at Realtor.com. And to our listeners, I hope you've really gained some fresh perspectives on what on hopefully less perfection, the not so imminent death of product management. Added some new tools to your tool belt for enhancing ethics and improving the product. See you all next time.
Again, I want to thank all of our off-camera roundtable attendees for their engagement and for submitting thought-provoking questions and comments throughout the discussion. Your participation is what makes these podcasts truly invaluable for the product management community. Whether you're an engineer, a brand new product manager, a designer, a salesperson, a chief anything officer, or merely product management curious, your perspective, questions, insights, and stories enrich our conversations. We invite you to be part of our on-screen roundtable and engage in these lively discussions. Don't hesitate to reach out by emailing me at jhorn, that is JHORN, at theproductguy.com. There are always more topics to cover, so in the comments below, let me know what you'd like to hear discussed in future episodes. To stay up to date on all things product management, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. Thanks again to everybody. I'm looking forward to continuing the conversation on our next TPG Live, where diverse perspectives, continuous learning, and expansive innovation are empowering the product mindset one discussion at a time. Now go and amplify your impact.